Don't go. Your fiancé has a gun.
Camilla Myers said it without looking up, her grimy fingers trembling as she reached for the crisp burgundy tie at Rocco Bernardi's collar. He went rigid. She tugged the silk gently, adjusting the knot that didn't need adjusting, and gave him the smallest shake of her head. Her part was finished. The warning had been delivered. Rocco didn't ask questions. He didn't turn around. "Back inside," he said evenly, eyes locked on the black limousine ahead. "Everyone. Now." His driver hesitated by the open car door. Beatrice, radiant in her yellow dress on the porch, tilted her head in confusion. "Sir?" Rocco turned toward the mansion entrance. After 3 steps, he stopped and looked back at Camilla, still standing there in her stained uniform, covered in soot from cleaning the fireplace. "You. Upstairs," he said. "My office." Immediately, her heart was already hammering by the time she followed him through the marble foyer. Camilla had been nothing but invisible for 6 months, another faceless servant scrubbing toilets and polishing silver in the Bernardi estate. That's why she'd seen what no one else had. An hour ago, she'd been cleaning the master suite when Beatrice Infantino swept in, thinking herself alone. Camilla had pressed herself flat behind the armoire, terrified of being noticed, of being punished for existing in the wrong room at the wrong time. That's when she watched Rocco's beautiful fiancé pull a small silver pistol from her jewelry box, check the chamber with practiced efficiency, and slip it into her designer clutch. Camilla should have stayed silent, should have finished her work and disappeared back into the walls like always. But she'd heard the whispers in the kitchen, how Rocco Bernardi was the only thing keeping the estate standing, how the other families circled like wolves, how the staff would all be turned out if anything happened to the Don. So when she saw him heading for that car, she'd made a choice. Now, climbing the grand staircase with Rocco Bernardi 3 steps ahead of her, Camilla realized with cold certainty she'd just made herself visible, and in this world, that could get her killed. Where in the world are you listening from? Tell me in the comments. Rocco's office smelled like leather and expensive cigars. Camilla stood just inside the doorway, hands clasped in front of her stained apron, while he moved to the window overlooking the circular driveway. Below, the Beatrice stood frozen on the marble steps, her yellow dress bright against the grey stone. The limousine idled in place, driver still at attention. "Tell me exactly what you saw." Rocco's voice was calm, but Camilla had worked here long enough to recognize the deadly quiet beneath it. "I was cleaning the master suite, sir. She came in. I hid behind the wardrobe because I wasn't supposed to be there yet. And she..." Camilla's voice cracked. "She took a gun from her jewelry box. A small one, silver. She checked it and put it in her purse. What time? Maybe an hour ago. I had just finished the second-floor bathrooms." Rocco didn't turn from the window. He pulled his phone from his pocket, typed something, then set it on the desk. 30 seconds later, it buzzed. He read the message, his jaw tightening almost imperceptibly. "But my driver's been with me for 8 years, Rocco said quietly. "You understand what you're accusing him of?" Camilla's stomach dropped. "Sir, I'm not. I only saw her with the gun. I didn't mean..." "But you assumed he was compromised." Rocco finally turned to face her. His eyes were dark, unreadable. "Why?" "Because..." She struggled to find words that wouldn't get her killed. Because she was so calm about it, like she knew exactly what she was doing. "And you were about to get in a car with her, alone, and I just..." She stopped, realizing how insane it sounded. A maid, presuming to understand Mafia business. Rocco studied her for a long moment. Then he picked up his phone again and made a call. "Marco, bring the car around back. Service entrance. Just you." He paused. "That's because I said so." He ended the call and gestured toward one of the leather chairs facing his desk. "Sit." Camilla perched on the edge of the seat, acutely aware of the dirt on her uniform, the soot probably smudged on her face. She didn't belong in this room. Didn't belong anywhere near this man. "What's your name?" "Camilla Myers, sir." "How long have you worked here, Camilla?" 6 months. "Who hired you?" "Mrs. Chen, the head housekeeper." "Family?" "No, sir. No one." Something flickered across his face. Interest, maybe, or calculation. "And in 6 months, have you ever spoken to me before today?" "No, sir." "To any of my men?" "Only when they need something cleaned." "To Beatrice?" Camilla shook her head. "She doesn't see the help." "But you see her." It wasn't a question. Rocco leaned against his desk, the arms crossed. "You see everything, don't you? Moving through rooms like you're invisible." She didn't answer. It was the truth, but admitting it felt dangerous. "Here's what's going to happen," Rocco said. "I'm going to get in that car and to drive to my warehouse in Red Hook. You're coming with me. We're going to have a longer conversation, and you're going to tell me everything you know about my fiancée's routines, her visitors, her phone calls. Everything you've seen while being invisible." Camilla's hands twisted in her lap. "And if I can't help you, then I'll know you're lying." His voice dropped. "And if you're lying, if this is some play by the Corsetti family or the Infantinos to get close to me, to make me paranoid about my own people." He didn't finish the threat. He didn't need to. "I'm not lying," Camilla whispered. "I'm just a maid. I saw the gun and I thought, you thought you'd save me." Rocco's expression was unreadable. Brave or stupid. I haven't decided which. A soft knock at the door. "Boss?" "Car's ready." Rocco straightened, buttoning his suit jacket. "Let's go." Camilla stood on shaking legs. Through the window she could see Beatrice still on the front steps, now talking rapidly on her phone, her free hand gesturing sharply. Even from this distance, Camilla could see the tension in her shoulders. "Sir." Camilla's voice was barely audible. "What about her?" Rocco smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Let her wonder. By the time we're back, I'll know if you're telling the truth." He opened the door, waiting. "And if you are Camilla Myers, you just became the most valuable person in this house." He said it like a promise, or a death sentence. She couldn't tell which. The warehouse interrogation lasted 3 hours. By the end, Rocco knew what Camilla ate for breakfast, where she'd grown up, and every detail she could remember about Beatrice's movements over the past 6 months. He also knew she was telling the truth. People who lied didn't remember the small things, what perfume Beatrice wore when certain visitors came, how she always checked her phone at exactly 10 p.m., the way she'd started locking her bedroom door 2 weeks ago. When they returned to the estate at sunset, Rocco brought 4 additional men with him. Camilla barely had time to process the armed guards now stationed at every entrance before Mrs. Chen appeared in the foyer, her face tight with confusion. "Mr. Bernardi, sir, if there's been a security concern, I should be informed." "Camilla Myers is being promoted," Rocco said, not slowing his stride toward the main staircase. "Effective immediately. She's head of household operations. She'll need the room next to mine. Have it prepared within the hour." Mrs. Chen's mouth opened and closed. Camilla felt every eye in the foyer turn toward her. Staff members she'd worked alongside for months, suddenly looking at her like she'd grown a second head. "Sir, with respect, there are protocols for promotions. Camilla has only been with us for..." "Within the hour, Mrs. Chen." Rocco's tone left no room for argument. He glanced at Camilla. "You'll want to collect your things. Have someone bring them up." He disappeared upstairs, leaving Camilla standing in her filthy uniform, surrounded by hostile stares. Well, Mrs. Chen said icily. But congratulations. The word felt like a slap. By dinner time, Camilla had been installed in a room that was bigger than any apartment she'd ever lived in. Cream walls, a 4-poster bed, an ensuite bathroom with marble counters. One of the housemaids, a girl named Teresa, who'd barely spoken to her before, had delivered her single duffel bag of belongings with barely concealed contempt. "Must be nice," Teresa had muttered. 6 months of scrubbing toilets and suddenly you're sleeping in the family wing. Camilla had wanted to explain that this wasn't a reward, that she was more trapped now than she'd ever been in the servants' quarters, but Teresa had already left, and Camilla was alone in her golden cage. The dinner bell rang at 7. Camilla didn't know if she was supposed to attend, but a guard appeared at her door with instructions. The Don expected her in the dining room. She changed into the only clean dress she owned, a simple grey thing she'd worn to her hiring interview, and followed the guard downstairs. The dining room was cavernous, lit by a crystal chandelier that probably cost more than Camilla would make in a lifetime. Rocco sat at the head of the table. Beatrice sat to his right, pristine in a cream silk blouse, her blonde hair swept into an elegant chignon. She looked up when Camilla entered, and something dangerous flashed across her face before she smiled. "Rocco, darling, I think there's been a mistake. The help shouldn't be dining with us." "Camilla is no longer the help." Rocco gestured to the empty chair on his left. "She's my head of household operations, nor she'll be joining us for meals going forward." Camilla forced herself to move to the chair, acutely aware of Beatrice's gaze tracking her every step. She sat down, hands folded in her lap, staring at the array of silverware she didn't know how to use. "How progressive of you," Beatrice said, her voice honey-sweet. "Though I have to wonder what qualifications a maid could possibly have for such an important position. Unless—" She paused delicately. "Oh, I see." The implication hung in the air like poison. Rocco's expression didn't change. "Camilla has proven herself perceptive and loyal, 2 qualities I value highly." He unfolded his napkin. "I trust that won't be a problem." "Of course not." Beatrice's smile didn't waver, but her eyes had gone cold. "I'm sure we'll become very close. After all, we'll practically be neighbors now. What won't we, Camilla?" Camilla managed a nod. "Yes, Mom. Please call me Beatrice. We're practically family now." She reached for her wine glass, and Camilla noticed the ring on her finger, a massive diamond engagement ring that caught the chandelier light. "Though I have to say, darling," this directed at Rocco, "it's unusual to make such dramatic staffing changes without consulting me. I'm going to be the lady of this house soon." "You will be," Rocco agreed, "which is why Camilla will report directly to me, to ease the transition." Beatrice's fingers tightened around her wine glass. For just a moment, Camilla saw beneath the polished surface, saw the rage, barely contained. Then Beatrice smiled again, raising her glass. "To new beginnings, then?" Camilla didn't miss how Beatrice's gaze lingered on her throughout the meal. Didn't miss the way she asked pointed questions about Camilla's duties, her schedule, her access to various parts of the house. She was being measured, assessed, targeted. By the time dessert arrived, Camilla understood exactly what Rocco had done. He hadn't promoted her. He'd painted a target on her back and used her as bait, and there was no way out but through. The wire was smaller than Camilla expected, a thin device taped between her breasts, the microphone no bigger than a shirt button. One of Rocco's men, a tech specialist named Vincent, had installed it in her room at dawn while explaining in clinical detail what would happen to her if she tried to remove it or warn Beatrice. "The boss is trusting you," Vincent had said, his tone implying that trust was a dangerous commodity in this house. "Don't make him regret it." Now Camilla stood outside Beatrice's suite with a cleaning caddy, her heart hammering against the wire. She knocked twice. "Come in." Beatrice was seated at her vanity in a silk robe, applying lipstick with the precision of someone preparing for war. She didn't look at Camilla in the mirror. "I didn't request housekeeping. Mr. Bernardi asked me to ensure all the suites are maintained to standard," Camilla said, keeping her voice steady. "I can come back later if—" "No." Beatrice set down the lipstick. "Now is fine. I'd hate for Rocco's head of household operations." The title dripped with contempt. "To neglect her duties on my account." Camilla entered, closing the door behind her. The suite was 3 times the size of her new room, decorated in creams and golds that matched Beatrice's colouring. But the yellow dress from yesterday hung on a mannequin in the corner, looking innocent now, expensive and beautiful. She started with the bathroom, scrubbing fixtures that were already spotless, hyper-aware of every sound behind her. Through the open door, she could hear Beatrice moving around, the rustle of fabric, the soft click of jewelry boxes opening and closing. "You know what I find fascinating?" Beatrice's voice drifted in. "How quickly fortunes can change in this house. One day you're nobody, scrubbing my toilets. The next, you're dining at the family table." A pause. Of course, falls can be just as quick. Quicker even. Camilla said nothing, focusing on the faucet. "I wonder what you did to earn such favor." Beatrice appeared in the bathroom doorway, fully dressed now in tailored black pants and a cream blouse. "Yet what services you provided." Heat crept up Camilla's neck. "I just do my job, Mum." "Beatrice," she corrected icily, "and somehow I doubt that. Rocco doesn't promote servants without reason. He's a practical man, transactional." Her smile was cruel. "So what did you give him, Camilla? What exactly is he buying?" "Nothing. You're wearing the same dress you wore to dinner." Beatrice's gaze raked over her. "Is that the only decent thing you own? How tragic. Perhaps I should give you some of my old clothes. Charity work, you know. Though," she tilted her head, "we're not quite the same size, are we? You're rather common. Built for scrubbing floors." Camilla's hands tightened on the cleaning cloth. The wire felt like it was burning against her skin. "I need to clean the bedroom," she managed. Of course," Beatrice swept past her. "Don't let me stop you, though do be careful with the closet. Some of those pieces cost more than you make in a year." The closet was a room unto itself, lined with designer dresses, organized by color. Camilla started on the far end, dusting shelves, checking for anything that seemed out of place. Beatrice had left the suite. Camilla heard the door close, but she couldn't be sure she was alone. Could be a test. Could be a trap. She worked methodically, moving from section to section. Shoes, handbags, jewelry cases, everything was exactly as it should be, perfectly organized, perfectly normal. Then she reached the back corner, where a section of evening gowns hung in garment bags. As she moved one aside to dust the shelf behind it, her hand brushed against the wall panel, and it shifted. Camilla froze. She glanced toward the closet entrance, listening. Nothing. She pressed the panel gently. It swung inward on hidden hinges, revealing a narrow compartment behind the wall. Inside were 3 manila folders and a cell phone. Her hands shook as she pulled out the first folder. Inside were photographs, surveillance photos of a man she recognized from the estate, one of Rocco's senior men. His daily routine documented in meticulous detail. Coffee shop at 7 a.m., gym at noon, mistress's apartment at 6 p.m. every Thursday. The second folder contained similar documentation of another capo, the third, another. At the bottom of each file was a date, circled in red, all within the next 2 weeks. A hit list. Camilla's breath came quick and shallow. She pulled out her phone, hands trembling. and photographed each page as quickly as she could. The wire would catch audio but not visuals. Rocco needed to see this. She was sliding the last folder back when she heard it. Footsteps in the bedroom. "Camilla," Beatrice's voice, sugary sweet. "Still in here?" Camilla shoved the panel closed and grabbed her dustcloth, emerging from between the garment bags, just as Beatrice appeared in the closet entrance. "Just finishing," Camilla said. "All done now." Beatrice's eyes narrowed, scanning the closet as if she could sense the disturbance. "Good. You can go." Camilla gathered her supplies and fled, feeling Beatrice's gaze like a knife between her shoulder blades. She made it to the service stairwell before her legs gave out, and she sank onto the steps, shaking. The wire was still recording. She pressed her hand against it, feeling her racing heartbeat beneath. "I found something," she whispered. "I found it." The photographs from Beatrice's closet had bought Camilla a shred of credibility, but Rocco's expression when he reviewed them had been grim. "This proves she's planning something," he'd said. "It doesn't prove when. We need to catch her in the act." So Camilla remained in her golden cage, waiting for Beatrice to make her move. It happened 3 nights later at the weekly family dinner. The dining room was fuller than usual. Rocco's underboss, 3 capos, and several associates filled the long table. Beatrice presided at Rocco's right in an emerald dress that matched her jewelry, playing the perfect fiancé. Laughing at the right moments, touching Rocco's arm with practiced affection. Now Camilla stood near the sideboard where the wine was being served, ostensibly overseeing the staff but really watching. Always watching. The first course came and went. Salad, perfectly dressed. Beatrice was animated tonight, telling a story about her father's yacht, her hands gesturing gracefully. She was good, Camilla thought. If you didn't know to look for the calculation behind her eyes, you'd never see it. The main course arrived. Osso buco, the chef's specialty. One of the servers, a young man named Paolo, brought out the wine. A 2015 Barolo that Rocco particularly liked. He poured for Rocco first, then Beatrice, then began working his way around the table. Camilla watched Beatrice's hand drift to her water glass, watched her take a delicate sip. Normal. Natural. Then Beatrice laughed at something the underboss said and leaned forward, her hand sweeping out in a gesture that seemed careless, enthusiastic. Her fingers brushed against Rocco's wine glass, knocking it slightly. "Oh, how clumsy of me." She steadied the glass, then reached for her own. "Here, darling, take mine. I haven't touched it yet." She switched the glasses so smoothly that if Camilla hadn't been watching for exactly this kind of move, she would have missed it. Rocco reached for the wine, the glass that had been Beatrice's, and raised it toward his lips. Camilla moved without thinking. She grabbed the tray of wine glasses from the sideboard and started toward the table, her steps deliberately unsteady. The room seemed to slow down. She could see Rocco's hand tilting the glass, could see Beatrice watching him, her expression serene. Camilla's foot caught on the edge of the rug. She went down hard, the tray flying from her hands. Crystal shattered across the floor. Wine splashed across the white tablecloth, across Beatrice's emerald dress, across Rocco's suit sleeve. The room erupted in chaos. "You stupid, clumsy bitch!" Beatrice was on her feet, wine dripping from her dress. "Look what you've done!" Rocco had jerked back from the table, his glass, the switched glass, knocked over in the collision. Wine pooled across his plate, soaking into the osso buco. "I'm so sorry," Camilla gasped from the floor, glass crunching under her hands. "I'm so sorry, I tripped. Sorry?" Beatrice's voice rose to a shriek. "This dress cost $15,000. Rocco, this is inexcusable. But I don't care what position you've given her. She needs to be fired. No, more than fired. She needs to be taught a lesson about her place. The room had gone silent, all eyes on Beatrice, whose perfect composure had finally cracked. "Beatrice." Rocco's voice was quiet, dangerous. "Don't defend her. She's incompetent. Sit down." Beatrice froze at his tone. She sat, slowly, wine still dripping from her dress onto the chair. Rocco stood. He picked up his ruined plate, studying the wine-soaked meat. Then he turned to Paolo, the server who'd poured the wine. "Where did this bottle come from?" The cellar, sir. Chef selected it himself." "Bring me the chef." "Sir, I don't think—" "Now." 2 minutes later, the chef appeared, still in his whites, confusion on his face. "Mr. Bernardi, or is something wrong with the meal? Who had access to this wine before it was served?" The chef blinked. "Just me, sir. I pulled it from the cellar this afternoon, let it breathe in the kitchen." "And you left it unattended?" "Well, yes, but only for a few minutes while I prepared the—" The gunshot was so sudden that Camilla screamed. The chef crumpled to the floor, a red stain blooming across his white jacket. Beatrice had gone pale. Around the table, the capos sat frozen, hands near their weapons. Rocco holstered his gun and looked at Beatrice. "Anyone who tries to poison me in my own house will die. I don't care who they work for. I don't care what family they belong to." He let the words sink in. "Is that understood?" "Of course," Beatrice whispered. "Darling, but I don't understand why. The wine will be tested." Rocco's gaze didn't leave her face. "If it's clean, I'll apologize for my paranoia. If it's not—" He smiled, cold and empty. "Well, then I'll know someone in this house wants me dead." He looked down at Camilla, still on the floor amid the broken glass. "Clean this up, then go to your room." Camilla nodded, not trusting her voice. As she gathered the shattered crystal with shaking hands, she caught Beatrice's reflection in one of the broken pieces. The woman was staring at her with such pure hatred that Camilla knew with absolute certainty she wouldn't survive the week. The wine tested positive for aconite, not enough to kill instantly, but enough to induce a heart attack within hours. Rocco said nothing about the results publicly, but Camilla saw 3 new guards posted outside his quarters and noticed that Beatrice's movements were now being carefully monitored. She also noticed that Beatrice had stopped pretending to smile. The attempt came 2 nights later, at 2 a.m. Camilla had been unable to sleep, her mind running through escape routes she didn't have, and outcomes that all ended badly. She'd finally given up and decided to go down to the kitchen for tea, a small rebellion, claiming space in a house where she still felt like an intruder. She took the service stairs out of habit, the narrow passage that staff used to move through the estate without being seen. The main halls were for family. These cramped stairwells were for people like her, or they had been, before Rocco turned her world sideways. The laundry wing was in the basement, and Camilla had to pass through it to reach the kitchen stairs. It was deserted at this hour, just rows of industrial washers and the chemical smell of detergent. A single bulb flickered overhead, casting strange shadows across the concrete floor. She was halfway through when she heard the footstep behind her. Camilla turned. A guard stood at the entrance she'd just come through, one she didn't recognize, which was strange because she'd memorized every face in Rocco's security detail over the past week. He was large, square-jawed, with dead eyes that assessed her like she was already a corpse. "Lost?" he asked. "Just getting tea." Camilla's voice came out steady, which surprised her. "Couldn't sleep." "Funny. Me neither." He started walking toward her, slow and deliberate. "Been thinking about that dinner? The wine? Or the way you just happened to spill that tray at exactly the right moment?" Camilla took a step back, It was an accident. Was it? He smiled, and there was nothing human in it. See, I think you're smarter than you look. I think you're the reason the boss is suddenly paranoid. The reason he's watching everyone like we're all suspects. Another step back. Camilla's mind raced, calculating distances and exits. The kitchen stairs were behind her, maybe 20 feet. But he was faster, stronger. I don't know what you mean. Sure you don't. His hand moved to his waistband, and Camilla saw the knife, not a gun. Too loud. A knife was personal. Quiet. Nothing personal, sweetheart. Just business. Someone's paying good money to make sure you have an accident. He lunged. Camilla ran. She made it 5 steps before he grabbed her hair, also yanking her backward. She screamed, and his hand clamped over her mouth, the knife coming up toward her throat. Then she remembered. 6 months of cleaning this house. 6 months of learning every corner, every passage, every hidden space that the architects had built for servants to move unseen. Camilla bit down hard on his palm. He swore, his grip loosening for just a second, and she twisted away. Instead of running for the kitchen stairs, she dove between 2 industrial dryers, squeezing into a gap that her months of being invisible had taught her existed. "You can't hide forever," the guard called, his voice echoing off concrete. "It's a dead end back there." But it wasn't. Behind the dryers was a vent, an old laundry chute that had been sealed off years ago but never properly closed. But Camilla had discovered it while retrieving a dropped earring. She'd barely fit then. She definitely didn't fit now. She forced herself into the opening anyway, ignoring the metal scraping her shoulders, the rust cutting her palms. Behind her, she heard the guard shoving the dryer aside. The chute dropped 6 feet into an old storage room that connected to the original service tunnels, passages that had once let servants move between wings without disturbing the family. Most of the house staff didn't even know they existed anymore. Camilla hit the ground hard, her ankle screaming in protest. Above her, the guard's face appeared in the chute opening. "Clever," he said, "but you're just delaying the inevitable." She didn't wait to hear more. The storage room had 3 exits, one to the old coal cellar, one to the original kitchen that was now just storage, and one that led to a tunnel running under the east wing. Camilla chose the tunnel, running despite her ankle, despite the darkness, despite the fact that she was in a thin nightgown with no shoes and no weapon. The tunnel was pitch black, but she knew it, had walked it dozens of times with flashlights and cleaning supplies, clearing out the spider webs and old furniture that accumulated in forgotten spaces. She counted steps, used the wall to guide her, and emerged in the sub-basement beneath the garage. She could hear footsteps above her. Multiple guards now, voices calling out. A radio crackling with instructions. Camilla pressed herself into the shadows beneath the stairs, breathing hard, and pulled out her phone with shaking hands. No, she typed out a message to the only person who could save her now. "Beatrice sent someone to kill me. I'm in the garage, sub-basement. Guard named Marcus. Square jaw, scar on left cheek." She's going to keep trying. She hit send and prayed Rocco checked his messages. Prayed that whatever calculating reason he had for keeping her alive was stronger than Beatrice's money. Because if it wasn't, these tunnels would just become her tomb. Rocco found her 40 minutes later, still hiding beneath the garage stairs, her nightgown torn and her feet bloody from running through the tunnels. He came alone, which she hadn't expected, his gun drawn, and his face a mask of cold fury. "Come here," he said quietly. Camilla limped out of the shadows. He holstered his weapon and shrugged off his jacket, wrapping it around her shoulders without a word. It smelled like expensive cologne and gun oil. "Marcus?" she asked. "Dead." Rocco's jaw tightened. along with the 2 men who helped him get past my security. Beatrice is currently explaining to me why I shouldn't put a bullet in her head right now. What did she say? That she has no idea what I'm talking about, that Marcus must have been working for the Corsettis. He looked at Camilla, and something in his expression shifted. You're bleeding. She glanced down at her feet, at the cuts from broken glass and rough concrete. It's fine. It's not fine. He pulled out his phone, typed something, then pocketed it. We're leaving. Now. Leaving where? Somewhere she can't reach you. He started toward the garage stairs. Can you walk? Camilla nodded, though every step sent pain shooting up her leg. Rocco noticed. Without asking permission, he swept her up, carrying her like she weighed nothing. She stiffened in his arms. I can walk. You can also shut up and let me help you. His tone left no room for argument. A black SUV was waiting in the garage, engine running. Rocco settled her in the passenger seat and drove, saying nothing as they left the estate behind. Camilla watched the gates disappear in the side mirror and wondered if she'd ever see them again. They drove for 2 hours, winding up into the mountains north of the city. The safe house turned out to be a cabin, isolated, surrounded by pine trees, with no neighbors for miles. It was smaller than Camilla's room at the estate, but felt bigger somehow. Real. Rocco carried her inside and set her on the couch, then disappeared into what she assumed was a bedroom. He returned with a first aid kit and knelt in front of her, reaching for her injured foot. I can do it, she said. I know you can. He started cleaning the cuts anyway, his touch surprisingly gentle for someone who'd killed 3 men tonight. But you're going to let me. Camilla watched him work, this man who terrified everyone he met, carefully bandaging her feet like it was the most important thing in the world. The hierarchy of the mansion felt very far away. Why? She asked finally. Why what? Why are you doing this? You could have just killed Beatrice. Ended this. Rocco's hands stilled. I don't have proof yet. Just your word against hers. And she's the daughter of one of the 5 families. If I kill her without evidence, her father will burn my organization to the ground. He resumed bandaging. So I need time. I need to gather enough proof that when I do put a bullet in her, no one will question it. And what happens to me while you're gathering proof? You stay here, with me. He finished with her feet and looked up at her. You stay alive. The next 3 days fell into a strange rhythm. Rocco spent mornings on his phone, coordinating his organization from a distance, while Camilla healed and tried to pretend she wasn't trapped in a cabin with a man who made her pulse race every time he looked at her. On the 4th day, he brought her outside. If you're going to survive this world, you need to know how to protect yourself. He handed her a pistol, smaller than his, lighter. Ever fired a gun? No. Good. Then I don't have to undo bad habits. He positioned himself behind her, his arms coming around to adjust her grip, or Camilla's breath caught at the proximity, at the solid warmth of him against her back. Feet shoulder-width apart, both hands on the grip. The gun is an extension of your arm, not a separate object. His breath was warm against her ear as he guided her through the stance. Every point of contact between them felt electric. Now squeeze the trigger, don't pull, squeeze. The gun kicked in her hands, the shot going wide of the target he'd set up. But she didn't drop it, didn't flinch. Again, Rocco said, his hand still steadying hers. They practiced until her arms ached and the sun started to set. By the end, she was hitting the target more often than not. Rocco stepped back, watching her with something like approval. You're a quick study. I'm motivated. Camilla lowered the gun, suddenly aware of how close they were standing. or how alone they were out here. "Rocco, don't." He turned away, but not before she saw something flicker across his face. "You should go inside. It's getting cold." But the cold wasn't what made her shiver as she watched him walk away. It was the realization that somewhere between the mansion and this mountain, the space between Don and Maid had become something else entirely. Something dangerous in ways that had nothing to do with Beatrice's bullets. If you are still here with me, I need you to subscribe if you haven't to. Your subscription means a lot to me, and I don't take it for granted. The proof came from an unexpected source, Rocco's accountant, a nervous man named Leo, who'd been quietly tracking discrepancies in the family's financial records for weeks. He arrived at the cabin on the 7th day, carrying a laptop and looking like he expected to be shot for his troubles. "Show me," Rocco said, clearing the kitchen table. Leo opened spreadsheet after spreadsheet, his finger tracing lines of transactions that meant nothing to Camilla, but made Rocco's expression darken with each passing minute. "Here," Leo said, pointing. 3 million moved through a shell company in the Caymans. The signature authorization is Infantino's, but look at the receiving account. He pulled up another document. It's registered to a holding company that the Corsetti family controls. When? 2 months ago, right after your engagement was announced. Rocco leaned back in his chair, his jaw tight. What else? More transfers, smaller amounts but consistent. It looks like... Leo hesitated. It looks like Infantino has been selling information. Shipment routes, distribution networks, the names and addresses of your key people. The dossiers, Camilla said quietly. Both men looked at her. In Beatrice's closet, they weren't just hit lists. They were intelligence packets. Everything someone would need to dismantle your organization from the inside. Rocco's hand curled into a fist on the table. The wedding was never supposed to happen, Leo finished. Best case scenario, Beatrice kills you at the altar. Worst case, you survive long enough to marry her, and she kills you on the wedding night. Either way, the Infantino family inherits your territory through the marriage contract, then immediately turns it over to the Corsettis in exchange for... He pulled up another document. A 20% stake in their East Coast operations and a seat on their commission. The silence that followed was deadly. How long have you known? Rocco's voice was dangerously quiet. I suspected for weeks, but I couldn't prove it until yesterday. The Cayman accounts are buried under 6 layers of shell companies. I had to... Leo swallowed. I had to call in some favors with people I shouldn't be talking to. You did good work, Leo. Rocco stood, walking to the window. Go back to the city. Don't tell anyone where I am or what you found. Act like everything is normal. And then wait for my call. After Leo left, Camilla found Rocco on the cabin's small porch, staring out at the dark trees. She wrapped a blanket around her shoulders and sat beside him on the steps. You're planning something, she said. Well, I'm planning to burn both families to the ground. He said it calmly, like he was discussing the weather. Infantino thinks he's clever, thinks he can sell me out to the Corsettis and walk away rich. He's wrong. How? Rocco looked at her, and in the moonlight she could see the cold calculation that made him dangerous. Beatrice is expecting me to either kill her, which starts a war I can't win, or marry her, which ends with me dead. What she's not expecting is option 3, which is? I give her exactly what she wants. I return to the estate. I move forward with the wedding plans. His smile was sharp, and I use her to feed false information back to her father and the Corsettis. Let them think their plan is working. That's insane. She tried to have me killed. She'll try again. Not if you're with me, or not if you're visible. He turned to face her fully. I need you to come back, Camilla. I need you to play a role. What role? Mine. The word hung between them. The staff already thinks we're sleeping together. Beatrice thinks it. Let them keep thinking it. Let Beatrice believe you're my weakness, something she can exploit. Camilla's heart hammered. And what are you really doing while they're focused on me? Gathering my allies, the families that are loyal to me, the ones who won't benefit from this merger. There are more than Infantino realizes. Rocco's expression was grim. I'm going to call a meeting, a summit. I'll tell them I've discovered a plot against the commission. The two families are trying to consolidate power. They'll want proof. I have proof. Leo's documents, the financial records, and... He paused. Why, I'll have testimony from someone inside the Infantino family. Someone who was part of the plan but got cold feet. Camilla understood immediately. Beatrice. She'll confess everything. Who paid Marcus? What her father promised the Corsettis. Every detail of the plan to kill me and absorb my territory. His voice was ice. She'll confess because it's the only way she survives the night. And then? And then the other families will sanction the hit. The Infantinos will be declared enemies of the Commission. The Corsettis will scramble to distance themselves from the failed plot. Rocco's smile was cold. And I'll inherit everything Infantino owns as compensation for the attempted assassination. It's traditional. Camilla absorbed this, the brutal logic of the world he lived in. When? The engagement party, or 2 weeks from now. He looked at her. Can you do this? Can you walk back into that house, knowing Beatrice wants you dead? She thought about the servants' quarters, about 6 months of being invisible, about the life she'd had before Rocco turned it upside down. Then she thought about Beatrice's cruel smile and the guard's knife at her throat. Yes, Camilla said, but I'm not walking back in as a maid. Rocco's expression shifted, something almost like respect crossing his face. No, you're not. They returned to the estate at sunset, the day before the engagement party. Rocco had sent word ahead that he'd been dealing with business upstate and was ready to move forward with the wedding. Beatrice had responded with appropriate joy, her text message full of heart emojis that made Camilla's stomach turn. Why, she thinks she's won, Camilla said, watching the estate gates swing open. Good. Rocco's hands were steady on the wheel. Confident people make mistakes. The house was in chaos when they arrived. Florists carrying arrangements the size of small cars, caterers setting up stations in the ballroom, security contractors installing additional cameras. Beatrice had spared no expense. The engagement party would host over 200 guests, a who's who of the 5 families and their associates, the perfect place for an assassination. Beatrice greeted them in the foyer, resplendent in a white cocktail dress that probably cost more than a car. She kissed Rocco's cheek, her smile brilliant and empty. Darling, I was so worried. 2 weeks without a word. Her gaze slid to Camilla, dismissive. Oh, I see you brought your pet back. Camilla is essential to the household, Rocco said evenly. I need her here for the party. Of course. Beatrice's smile didn't waver, though I've hired additional staff for the event. Professional servers. We wouldn't want any accidents. The threat was clear. Camilla was to stay out of sight, where Beatrice could control the narrative, which was exactly what they wanted. That night, Rocco reviewed the guest list with Camillo in his office. These are confirmed Infantino loyalists, he said, marking names with a red pen. These are Corsetti associates, and these, he circled 5 names, are the ones I'm worried about, professional contractors. They don't belong to any family. Assassins? Likely. but I can't refuse them entry without showing my hand." He looked up at her. "Well, that's where you come in." The next evening, Camilla stood in the servants' staging area, wearing a black server's uniform, white shirt, black vest, black pants. Her hair was pulled back severely, and she wore no makeup, just another faceless member of the catering staff. You remember the signals? Vincent, the tech specialist, adjusted the wire hidden under her vest. Red napkin on the bar means I've identified a threat. White napkin means I need immediate extraction. Camilla's voice was steadier than she felt. "And if something goes wrong, hit the panic button." Vincent tapped the small device disguised as a button on her vest. "Rocco's men will move in within seconds." She nodded, picked up a tray of champagne flutes and entered the ballroom. The party was already in full swing. Where the room glittered with crystal chandeliers and candlelight, the guests dressed in designer gowns and expensive suits. Camilla moved through the crowd like a ghost, offering champagne, watching faces. Beatrice held court near the entrance in a red gown that matched her lipstick, her hand possessively on Rocco's arm. She was radiant, triumphant, the perfect bride-to-be. Camilla circulated, her eyes scanning. There, a man by the bar, mid-40s, broad-shouldered, with the careful stillness of someone trained to kill. His suit was expensive, but didn't fit quite right, tailored to hide a shoulder holster. She drifted to the bar, set down her tray, and placed a red napkin next to the champagne tower. 2 down, 3 to go. But the second assassin was easier to spot, a woman in a silver dress who kept her clutch closed with one hand at all times. Never set it down, never let it leave her sight. Camilla had seen Beatrice do the same thing with the gun in her purse, red napkin on the dessert table. The third and fourth were together, posing as a married couple near the orchestra, too attentive to the entrances and exits, too aware of the security positions. Camilla caught the man checking his watch 3 times in 5 minutes, a nervous tell, red napkin near the champagne fountain. She was looking for the 5th when she felt it, eyes on her back. She turned slowly, scanning the crowd, and her blood went cold. Marcus, the guard who'd tried to kill her in the laundry room, the one Rocco said he'd executed. He was alive. They dressed in a server's uniform identical to hers, carrying a tray of canapes. Their eyes met across the ballroom, and his expression shifted from surprise to cold recognition. He was the 5th assassin, and now he knew she was here. Camilla's hand moved toward the panic button, but Marcus was already moving, setting down his tray and cutting through the crowd toward her. She couldn't run without causing a scene, couldn't signal without exposing herself, so she did the only thing she could. She picked up her tray and walked straight toward Rocco and Beatrice, her heart hammering, Marcus closing in behind her. If she was going to die tonight, it wouldn't be quietly in some corner. It would be right in front of everyone, where Rocco could use it, where her death would mean something. Camilla was 10 feet from Rocco when Marcus grabbed her arm. "Going somewhere?" he whispered, his grip bruising. She drove her elbow back into his ribs, exactly like Rocco had taught her at the cabin. Marcus grunted, his hold loosening just enough for her to wrench free and stumble forward. The tray clattered to the floor. Crystal shattered. The ballroom went silent. Every eye turned toward the commotion, toward Camilla, breathing hard, and Marcus reaching under his server's jacket for his weapon. Rocco's eyes met hers across the room. She saw the calculation there, the split-second decision. He nodded once. Camilla hit the panic button. The chandeliers went dark. Emergency lighting flooded the room in red, and all hell broke loose. The first shots came from Rocco's men, positioned around the ballroom's perimeter. Precision strikes that dropped the assassin at the bar and the couple near the orchestra before they could draw their weapons. Guests screamed, diving under tables, running for exits that Rocco's security had already sealed. Marcus pulled his gun, aiming at Camilla, but she was already moving. She grabbed a champagne bottle from the fallen tray and swung it at his head. Glass shattered against his temple. He staggered, and she ran. Toward Rocco. Toward the only safety she knew, but Beatrice was faster. The woman in red moved with deadly grace, her hand diving into her clutch, pulling out a small silver pistol, the same one Camilla had seen her load weeks ago. She raised it toward Rocco's back as he barked orders to his men, was oblivious to the threat behind him. Camilla didn't think. She grabbed a steak knife from an abandoned table setting and threw it. The knife wasn't balanced for throwing, didn't have the weight or design. But it didn't matter. It struck Beatrice's shoulder, and the woman's shot went wide, the bullet embedding itself in the ceiling. Beatrice whirled, her perfect face twisted in rage. "You little bitch!" She aimed the gun at Camilla. Rocco moved like lightning. His hand closed around Beatrice's wrist, twisting hard enough that Camilla heard bones crack. The gun dropped. Beatrice screamed, and Rocco caught the weapon before it hit the ground. "You were right," he said, conversationally, as if they weren't surrounded by gunfire and chaos. "The wine was poisoned. The dossiers were real. What your father did sell me to the Corsettis." He pressed his gun to her temple. "But you made one mistake." "What?" Beatrice gasped, tears streaming down her face. "You underestimated the help." He pulled the trigger. The firefight lasted another 3 minutes. By the end, all 5 assassins were dead. 6 of Beatrice's Infantino loyalists had been neutralized. The woman in the silver dress had tried to escape through the kitchen and been stopped by Vincent. The Corsetti associates had surrendered the moment they realized they were outnumbered. The rest of the guests, the neutral families, the business associates, the politicians, huddled against the walls with their hands visible, watching as Rocco Bernardi walked through the carnage like a king surveying his battlefield. He stopped in the center of the ballroom, stepping over Beatrice's body without a glance. His men formed a semicircle behind him. The surviving guests, nearly 100 people, watched in terrified silence. "Some of you knew," Rocco said, his voice carrying across the room. "Some of you were complicit in the Infantino Corsetti plot to kill me and absorb my territory. Some of you simply chose to look the other way." No one spoke. But one person. He turned, his gaze finding Camilla where she stood amid the broken glass and blood, still holding the champagne bottle. One person who had nothing to gain and everything to lose chose loyalty, chose to warn me, chose to stand with me when everyone else would have watched me die. He walked toward her, his footsteps echoing in the silence. When he reached her, he carefully removed the server's apron from her waist and let it fall to the floor. "Camilla Myers is no longer a servant in this house," Rocco said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "From this moment forward, she is under my protection. She speaks with my voice. She acts with my authority." He took her hand, the gesture unmistakable in its meaning. "She is the new mistress of the Bernardi estate, and anyone who disrespects her, anyone who threatens her, anyone who even looks at her wrong," his smile was cold, "will answer to me." The room remained silent, but Camilla saw it, the shift in how people looked at her. No longer invisible, no longer nothing. Rocco raised their joined hands. "Now get the fuck out of my house, all of you, except..." His gaze swept across the Corsetti associates. "You. But we need to have a conversation about reparations." As the guests fled and Rocco's men began securing the prisoners, Camilla stood in the center of the destroyed ballroom, still holding Rocco's hand. She thought about the girl who'd hidden behind wardrobes, who'd scrubbed floors in silence, who'd believed she was powerless. That girl was gone, burned away in the red light and gunfire. "What now?" she asked quietly. Rocco looked down at her, and for the first time since she'd met him, his smile was genuine. Now we rebuild. Together. Sometimes the most dangerous thing you can do is see what everyone else ignores. Sometimes loyalty is rewarded not with gold, but with power, and sometimes the girl who cleans the floors ends up owning the house. What would you have done in Camilla's position? Would you have stayed silent, or risked everything for a dangerous man's life? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories where the underdog becomes the queen. Share this with someone who needs a reminder that your circumstances don't define your destiny. Your choices do.